All right, I think we're live now. So happy Thursday and welcome to our NoCodeOps live community show. We're here again with our guest speaker, Chris Coleman. Hi, Chris. It's great to have you. And yeah, this is the second episode of our series of events based all on application programming interfaces, or also called APIs, much more friendly. And we're also here with our co-host Jens, who will be helping me out with this event and kind of managing the direction of things, maybe answering some of you in the chat. So hello to all our audience on YouTube and LinkedIn, but also he's here to tell us all about the news happening at NoCodeOps before we kick off with this event. Jens, do you want to tell us what's coming up?
I would love to. Uh, Super happy to be back here with you guys and everyone watching. So we do an API series, and this is number two, the second one of those. And I'm gonna put this up here for you to see. So if you're watching from LinkedIn right now and want to have updates on the next few webinars, you should go to this link and just enter your email there. And first of all, you will get the recording from this event right after we finish. You will get that email to you. And you'll also get the information about the next events we have. I think we have 4 more events, 3 or 4 more API events coming up. So we are going full on, 100% all in on APIs. Chris is back this week. Next week, we are going to talk about how to read and interpret API documentation. And we will take a look at the Postman platform, which is an incredibly powerful platform when it comes to building your own APIs and making API connections. The week after that, we will talk about when you should use an API that already exists and when you should actually build your own. And we have more events after that. So if you want updates on those, if you want the recording from those events, go to this link and just enter your email, and we will send it to you. And after Chris' presentation, I will also give you a small taste of our upcoming API bootcamp, which will really teach you everything you need to know to start using APIs. So more on that after Chris's amazing presentation from today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jens.
Back
Oh,
to
were you
you,
gonna?
Claudia.
There you go. And hello to all the people in the chat. I wonder how many people of you here are joining us from last week's event as well. I can see Rachel is here for part 2. And speaking of last week's event, we kind of touched upon what an API is, what they're used for. And Chris here had a fantastic analogy that stuck with me for the whole week. He gave me that epiphany of, oh yes, now I can understand APIs, because yeah, they're just like, he used this food analogy and I related to that very well. Chris, do you wanna just give us a little taste of what it was? And then today we will also be talking about how to create your own API and build your no-code backend using Xano as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So hi everybody. It's good to see some of you coming back and some new faces as well. I'm excited to give you a little presentation today on how, in a presentation and a demo on how you can build your own APIs. So if we're ready, we can swap over to my screen here, and I will definitely make sure to give that analogy again. I have it very very early on here in the slides. So this is an introduction to Xano. So what does Xano allow you to do? Xano is a no-code platform that allows you to build your own APIs. It's very cool. So today's discussion, we're going to do a super quick review first on what actually is an API. We're going to talk a little bit about what is Xano, why you would want to potentially adopt a third-party backend. We're actually going to jump into Xano, and I will show you a live example of actually building your own backend. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about how to use your backend and these APIs that you've built in various no-code front ends. And then, of course, as always, we'll take some Q&A at the end. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has there. So who am I? Again, my name is Chris. I am a part of the customer success team at Xano, specifically the content lead. You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, as well as the No Code Ops Discord server. So if anybody has any questions after the presentation, absolutely feel free to reach out to me in whatever method you prefer. Happy to help. So quick review, what actually is an API? And as Claudia mentioned, it seemed like a lot of people really connected to this example. So the example that we like to give is that of a restaurant. So we have, of course, our customer. The customer goes into the website and speaks to the waiter to place an order. The waiter will then take your order and translate that order into a way that the kitchen understands. So the kitchen can then prepare your order, make it exactly the way that you want, hand it back to the waiter, and the waiter will then give you back your order. So in terms of an API, your waiter is the API. An API is designed to take information from two separate places and make sure that both of those separate places are actually able to interpret that data. So the API takes your order, takes your data, translates it into a way that the kitchen can understand. The kitchen hands it back to the waiter, and then the waiter returns it back to you. So you have your request, which is making your order, and then your response, which is receiving that order back as expected. So just a quick little kind of analogy there for you to hopefully understand in more real world terms.
I'm never gonna
what an
look at
API
waiters the
actually is.
same. I'm never gonna look at waiters the same way again.
All right. So with that, and of course, if you want a little bit more of a deep dive, definitely recommend going back and checking out last week's presentation if you haven't already. So with that, assuming we have an understanding of what an API is, now we're going to talk about Xano. So what is Xano? Xano is the fastest way to build a scalable, secure backend for your application without code. And I know I'm kind of switching around terminologies here. I'm talking about APIs and then I'm talking about backends. I will definitely define that for you here in just a moment. Our mission at Xano is essentially to empower anyone to build, launch, and scale unique software applications to the world. So we want to make sure that whether you are a traditional seasoned developer, maybe you have 30 years under your belt where you've been writing code by hand, or if you are fully no code and you have never written a line of code in your life, we want to make sure that Xano enables you to still build those super powerful and scalable applications. With that, we should probably talk about what actually is a backend. So when you think about your website or your application, you can split it up into two sections. The first section is your front end. This is the user interface and the user experience. This is what the user actually sees when visiting your website or application. And of course, with the crowd that we have here today, you are more than likely using one of the various no-code front ends to put together your applications. So it could be Webflow or Bubble or Bravo. There's so many different no-code front ends that all do a really great job of making sure that we put forth these great user experiences. But we also need to think about what actually happens when a user clicks a link or a button or places an order or tries to contact us through the application. What's actually controlling all of that functionality? That is your backend, and that is where Xano comes into play. So your backend is your database. All of the data that your application utilizes. Those are your APIs and all of the functionality that your API is performing on this information, as well as the server and infrastructure that actually powers the backend. What we offer at Xano is a no-code approach for you to build your database and your APIs, and we also manage all of that backend infrastructure for you, so you can just log in and build. This, of course, saves you a lot of time. Having that no-code approach, so you're not writing things by hand, but it also can save you a lot of money. When you think about maintaining a backend and maintaining and servers and building all of this logic, typically that's something that would require a team of software engineers to build and maintain for you. That is no longer the case now that we have Xano. You can take care of all of that yourself. It's pretty amazing. So now that we have a sort of a high-level understanding of what a backend is, we want to think about why would we actually use a separate backend? Plenty of these no-code front ends actually provide either a full backend or backend functionality. If you are a Bubble user, this would be your Bubble database and your workflows. Webflow has their CMS and logic. So why would you want to actually even utilize a separate platform for that functionality? Well, the first thing is one backend for many front ends. Let's say you have a website that you're building in Webflow, and you want a native mobile application. Well, guess what? If you are fully relying on Webflow logic and the Webflow CMS, which, just to be clear, are fantastic tools in and of themselves, but what if you want a native mobile application? So you need to utilize another platform to build that. Maybe Bravo Studio is a fantastic native mobile app builder. That means that you then have to think about migrating all of your logic and all of your data over to that second platform, and also potentially maintaining synchronization between those two platforms. Every time you make a change on one platform, you also have to make a change on the other. If your backend lives in Xano, that means that because we consider ourselves front end agnostic at Xano, if you want to adopt another front end for your application, just connect it to Xano and you're good to go. You have sidestepped that entire absolutely massive migration piece. So there's a huge advantage right off the bat. We also make code development super easy in Xano. So if you are working with a team to build or maintain your application, we enable you to build side by side with other members of your team, just like a Google Doc. Honestly, it's pretty incredible. Multiple data sources. So this is a big thing, and I'm actually going to talk about this a little bit more when I give the demo. But let's say maybe the data that your application uses doesn't always live on the application. Last week when we talked a little bit about a movie search application, you're not going to maintain that data yourself, right? You're going to utilize a third-party service to provide that movie data to you. So with Xano, you are able to collect data from all of these multiple different sources and perform your logic and store and transform that data all in one place, just to make it super simple to work with those multiple sources. And then finally, Xano is both super secure and scalable. So depending on the backend solution that you're utilizing now, again, typically part of the front end that you're working with, scalability and security becomes super tricky, especially the scalability piece. What happens? Maybe you have 500 monthly users now. What happens when you have 10,000 or 50,000? Does the solution that you have now have the ability to scale? And do you have the resources to enable that scaling? It can, depending on the platform that you're using, you could be looking at tens of thousands of dollars per month in server costs, again, depending on your platform, to scale your backend. At Xano, because we're focused fully on the backend, we want to make sure that we are able to scale with you and grow with you, as opposed to, kind of making you feel potentially trapped in a place where you're not really able to do that. So, kind of related is, when should you think about using Xano? Maybe you already have an application but you're kind of maybe thinking that everything's fine right now, but you're kind of wondering about maybe utilizing a third-party backend like Xano. The first consideration would be super large data sets. So, when you're thinking about application performance, of course, the amount of data that the application is using is a huge component of that. Because at Xano, we do have the ability to scale pretty much infinitely based on your needs. As your data set grows, migrating to a third-party backend can greatly increase your performance, just depending on exactly what you have happening. And then also, kind of on that same note, would be data transformation. So what actually needs to happen to that data as it enters and leaves your application? Maybe the solution that you have currently doesn't really have the powerful data transformation features that you actually need. Maybe you're relying on third-party services to perform that transformation for you. All of that can be migrated over to Xano. Again, data from multiple sources, which we've already discussed. Compliance. Compliance is huge. HIPAA compliance, GDPR compliance are incredibly important, and they're only going to become more important and more relevant with each passing day, honestly. So when you're thinking about maintaining compliance, Xano allows you to choose your server region, so you can make sure to comply with any GDPR related laws and regulations, or other local data privacy laws and regulations that you need to pay attention to, as well as HIPAA compliance. We do offer a BAA if you need HIPAA compliance in your application. We offer that for your backend. It's going to be very difficult to find a no-code platform that offers you a front end as well as a back end that can also offer you the ability to be HIPAA and GDPR compliant. So moving
Hey,
your back
Chris,
end. Mhm.
can you clarify what a HIPAA compliance is?
Sure. So HIPAA compliance is, and I'm definitely not an expert on HIPAA compliance specifically, but HIPAA compliance is related to health data. So it's a set of standards and practices revolving around making sure that your users' health data and personally identifiable information, that you're following a very strict set of standards as far as how that data is maintained and how it is secured, so that it can't be accessed by anybody that shouldn't be able to access it. It's very strict, and it can be very difficult to maintain that compliance. So if that's something that a user does need, moving your backend to Xano, we're able to just offer you that right out of the box, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. And then finally, we did talk about portability. Again, if you are thinking about deploying, a native mobile version of your application, portability is super important. Or maybe if you just want to be prepared to do that, starting out with a Xano backend, even if you're not there yet, is a really great way to get prepared for that. And again, scalability. If you can see your user base growing, and maybe you're feeling some growing pains, users are complaining about performance, that sort of thing. Scalability is another great reason to make that move to a third-party backend like Xano. All right. So another thing I want to talk about, and then just really quickly, and then we're going to jump into a demo, is getting help using Xano. Maybe a little bit weird to mention this right off the bat, but I want to make sure to communicate all of the different ways that you can get assistance building in Xano. Because while we are a no-code platform, and we do make it super easy for you to build using Xano, it is still a technical product, and there is still a little bit of a learning process involved in actually getting yourself acquainted with using Xano. So our YouTube channel, the Xano YouTube channel, we upload 1 to 2 new videos on average every week. These are going to be tutorials on how to use Xano, product announcements and new features, examples on how to integrate with various no-code front ends, third-party APIs and data sources. Anything under the sun in terms of using Xano lives on our YouTube channel. So definitely recommend keeping an eye on that. We also have our Xano community forum and Xano Builders Slack. So we have multiple places where you can go and interact with other Xano users directly, and get maybe any assistance that you need. Talk about different use cases and the best ways to build those in Xano. So we have the forum and that Slack available to you. We also have weekly office hours, and this is really cool. So we have 2 office hour sessions every week where you can just hop in and troubleshoot or get a walkthrough on something from a member of the Xano team. So that's live help. And by the way, there's no cost to that. You can come as many times as you want. They are free to you. So that's a super valuable resource just to get hands-on help from some of the Xano team. And then, of course, we also have direct support chat. Again, this is available to everyone, whether you are on our free plan. We do have a free plan, by the way, all the way up to our highest tier paid plans. You have access to direct support chat, no matter what your question is. It's how to build something, or maybe you're seeing an unexpected result, or you're not quite sure the best way to do something. You're worried about efficiency, anything under the sun in terms of building in Xano. We have direct support chat available. So there's lots of options there for you.
I can tell you that Glenn is saying in the chat, I can testify to the fact that Xeno support is second to none. They're all awesome. The office hours solved my issue within 5 to 10 minutes.
I'm super happy to hear that. That's awesome.
So Glenn, that's Chris right there.
Well, so to be fair, it's definitely not just me anymore. We are actively expanding our customer success team. So if you do hop into support chat, make sure to say hello to Johanna, who is absolutely killing it on our customer success team right now.
Nice.
All right. So with that being said, let's take a look at Xano. Let's build ourselves a backend, shall we?
All right.
Just a moment to get set up here. All right.
We did have an event on Xano like a couple months ago here at NoCodeOps, and I have to be honest, it wasn't the easiest thing for me because it looks a little bit intimidating because it's a backend. So I'm very excited for you to be showing me that it could be transformed into another amazing analogy that I can understand.
I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best. Again, it is a technical product. There is no way around that. It's not always a super quick pick it up and go. But we do try to make it as easy as we can. So hopefully, I can get everybody started today. So this is what you see when you first sign up to Xano. We call this our Jumpstart Wizard. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to ask you a few questions just to kind of tailor your experience to you a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and answer a couple of these questions here, and we'll click Get Started. And then I'm asked to create my workspace. Your Xano workspace is essentially just a container for your entire project. So for this example, we are going to be building a loyalty card application. Excuse me. So a loyalty card app, you can think of it as like an app on your phone where you look up restaurants in your area and you can claim coupons to use at those restaurants. So we're going to be building an example backend for that application. So we'll hit continue, and then we're asked, how do we want to start? So I'll start a little bit down here. We do have the option to start from a template. We have this template called Backend Basics. So if you have absolutely no idea what a backend is, maybe you're still a little bit unfamiliar with the concepts of a database or an API, definitely recommend checking out this Backend Basics template, which will kind of give you example tables and APIs to start with and show you how those are linked together. So that's a really great resource right there. Or maybe you are a little bit more advanced and you're kind of just ready to jump in. We do have some other templates available. Anything from a rental marketplace, a photo sharing platform. We have a template that integrates directly with Webflow and MemberStack if you're utilizing those platforms. So, and these all basically just come with pre-built database schema and API endpoints, so you can just get started using them pretty much right away. You do also have the option from this screen to import from Airtable. So if you have an Airtable base with all of your data in it that you want to migrate to Xano, guess what? It's only a couple of clicks and all of that data gets moved right over to your Xano database. It's very cool. For this example, we're going to start from scratch. And then I'm asked about my database and my APIs. So the first thing we want to think about is what database tables are we actually going to need for our application. Of course, you can add more later. This is just to get us started. So the first option we have here is a user table. I'm going to keep that because we do need to keep some information about our users. The second table I'm going to need is a merchants table. The merchants table is going to exist to hold data about our merchants. So just like a name and a description. The third table is going to be a deals table. So this is a table that, as the name implies, holds information about the deals that are available at those merchants. And then finally, we are going to have a ledger table. The ledger table exists to keep track of which users have used which deals. So before we continue here, you can see we have this option that says your API include CRUD, create, read, update, delete API endpoints for the database tables above to connect to your front end. So what does this mean? This means that for these database tables here, and you will of course have the option if you add tables later as well, Xano will actually just give you API endpoints that already work with that table, so you don't even need to build them. These will be a set of API endpoints to create new data, read data from the table, update existing data in the table, and delete data in those tables. So if you check this box here, we will give you those API endpoints so you can get started using those right away. We're asked what features will our application support. So this gives you another option to add some pre-built functionality to your Xano workspace. As you can see here, we have a few integrations here that you can add and begin to use right away, such as SendGrid and Twilio for communicating with your users, Stripe for payments and checkout. You're, of course, not limited to these third-party services. I want to be very clear. If you have a third-party service that you want to integrate with, if they have an API available, you can work with them in Xano. We just have a few pre-built here ready to go for you, but you're certainly not limited to these. And last but not least, authentication. Authentication is obviously super important. We want our users to be able to log into our application, right? So with that, we're given several different options for actually enabling authentication. Xano maintains just standard email and password authentication for you. So you can see we have this checked here. So as soon as we actually click finish, we will have that functionality ready to go. We don't have to build those APIs for signing up and logging in. Xano is going to give you those. However, if you want your users to also to be able to sign in with Google or Facebook or Twitter or any of these services, we also have pre-built functionality. So all you'd have to do is click on one of these and we will give you that functionality pre-built so you can use it right away. It's very cool. And again, just like before, you're not limited to these services in terms of authentication. If you have another third-party service that offers an authentication pathway, typically through an API, you can utilize that in Xano. The most popular example that I can think of would be Apple. So if you need to integrate sign in with Apple into your application, you can absolutely do that in Xano. And we actually have an example of how to do that on our YouTube channel. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely recommend checking that out. But for this example, we're going to keep it super simple, just standard email and password authentication. And finally, we can click finish and we can all take a breath and take a drink. Claudia, are there any questions or anything that I can answer right now?
Not right now, not coming up in the chat. I mean, Jean Canto from LinkedIn is saying, I've tried many of the low-code databases since 2008. None of them are easy, but it's very exciting once you start to learn to make the system do what you need or want. So yeah.
For
It's
sure.
true.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I said to him, I'm waiting for that kind of aha moment where I'm like, yes, yeah, I get it. So far, you just filled in kind of like what you need to sign up to Xano and just
Hmm.
authenticate yourself with an email. Oh, we do have a question. Is Magic Link available as an authentication approach?
Absolutely, yeah. So we do have videos on our YouTube channel, as well as pre-built logic for you to utilize Magic Link inside with with your Xano backend. Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, that's all. Thank you, Jens, for feeding that question to me.
Awesome. All right, so so now we're inside Xano. This is our Xano dashboard, and the Xano dashboard just gives you quick access to some of the things that I mentioned earlier, like the YouTube channel, the Xano community, as well as our documentation. You also have access to support chat down in the lower left-hand corner. But what we're going to do is we're going to jump straight into our database, and we're going to go ahead and start populating our tables with some data. So if we take a look at the user table, you can see we have some, because we enabled authentication, we have some columns here already. So let's just go ahead and add a couple of users. I'm just going to click to add a record. This is a very standard, database view here, where we can just click to go ahead and add any data that we need to. So I'm just filling in a couple of those records here. But what if we wanted to add another field to one of these tables? Let me hop over to my merchants table, and we can see this plus sign here. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and this will give you just a list of some of the information that is available, or some of the field types that you can actually add to your Xano database. We have some super basic common field types here: text and integers, table references to build relational data, which is super important, and we'll talk about that here very shortly. All the way down to some more advanced things like strict email and password fields, file storage. If you need images, videos, or other attachments stored in your backend, we can take care of that for you as well.
Question.
Sure.
Can you please go full screen?
Oh, sure. How about that?
That's it. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So let's add a couple of text fields here. So I'm just going to add a field for my merchant name, and I'm going to add a field for the merchant description. And let's add a couple of records here. I'm going to add McDonald's, and I'm going to say the description is burgers. And we will add Pizza Hut, and the description is pizza. So we're going to go back. We're going to go into our deals table, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to click this plus sign here. You can see how easy it is for me to add a new field. This is just going to be for the deal amount. And now this next field is super important. For this field type, we're going to use a table reference. The table reference allows us to build relational data because we need to keep track of what merchant these deals are valid at. And we can refer right back to our merchants table to do that. So when I click table reference here, I'm asked to choose a database. I'm going to choose merchants. And so what we can do here now is I can go ahead, I can type in my amount. And then when I click on this merchants field here, you can see the data from my merchants table is available for me to either search or select. So I'm just going to select McDonald's for this first one, and we'll do a 20% off for our second deal, which will be for Pizza Hut. The table relationships are handled by the record ID. So you can see here each deal has their own ID, just like each merchant has their own ID. So when I try to get data from my deals table, I can also get the related data from my merchant table super easily, which we'll demo here in just a moment. And with that, just for the sake of time, I will speed things up a little bit. We're going to add two more table reference fields to our ledgers table. And this is going to be, again, for deals used by users. So I have two table references here, one to my deals table and one to my users table. So let's go ahead and populate a couple of used deals here. And then we will take a look at our APIs. So over here on the left-hand side, now that we have data populated, we can actually start to work with this data. So let's take a look at our APIs here. And you can see these are all of the default APIs that Xano has built for you. So we have a set of APIs for each of our database tables, as well as the authentication APIs. So you can see we have API endpoints to get data, add new data, delete data, get a single record, or edit an existing record. So we have all those ready to go. We can use them right away. For this quick little demo here, we're going to look at this Get Merchants API endpoint. So this is the no-code API builder. This is where you're going to be spending almost all of your time in Xano. And it's split into 3 sections. The first section is our inputs. Our inputs are any data that these API endpoints actually need to function. So as an example, if you have an endpoint where a user is using to log in, so we have authentication, so we have a login endpoint, the inputs for that endpoint are going to be an email or a username and a password, because we need that information before we can actually execute. The function stack is where all of the actual logic lives. So what happens when we actually call this API endpoint? All of that lives inside of the function stack. And then finally, we have our response, which is what data is this API actually returning when we're done? So we make our request, the logic is performed, and then we have our response. You can see in the function stack, I just have one single step here right now that queries records from the merchants table, and it returns that data and stores it in a variable, so we can use it in the remainder of our function stack. So we just have that one step, and then our response just returns the contents of that query. I can run and debug to test my API endpoints right inside Xano. So when I click run, you can see I have the result from my query here, which is just data from my merchants table. Now, one of the really cool things about these queries is you are able to pretty easily enhance this data. And this is what we set up for earlier when we were using those table reference fields. So we know that we have deals that belong to each of these merchants. So let's say in this API, I not only want to see the merchants, but I want to see the deals as well. So I can go over here to this output tab, and you can see we have a little preview of what the response here looks like. But then we also have this button down here called add-on. This will allow me to add on additional data to this query. So I'll click add-on. I'm going to create a new add-on. And the first question we're asked is, what database table do I want to add to the response? Well, because I want to know about the deals that are valid at each of those merchants, I'm going to add the deals table. We're then asked how we want the data returned. For this example, I'm going to want a list of items. That makes the most sense, because what if there are multiple deals for each merchant? So I'll click list of items. And then I'm asked what field in our deals database table maps to our merchants table. So if you remember when we were building our deals table, we have that merchants ID field, which is the reference to our merchants table. So that is the field that I'm going to select here. I'll click next, and we will go ahead and save our changes here. And with that, we can run this query again. And now you can see that not only do I have my merchant data, but I also have the deal that belongs to that merchant, just like that. So I know that that was a lot. And, I want to be very clear. I recognize that this is not something that you could, learn in like a quick 20-minute time span. But what I did want to at least demonstrate here is kind of some of the ability that that Xano gives you in terms of just a very quick click and drag and point and click method to building these APIs. And I will also point out here, just very briefly, all of the wide range of functionality that you can add to your Xano function stacks. So we have database requests, which is again just getting data from your database, sending data to your database, things like that. Data manipulation, so you have the ability to maintain variables, which is just like temporary spots to hold data as your logic executes. Conditional if-then statements, loops, all sorts of things in here, all the way down to content upload, and external API requests. So if you need to integrate with a third-party service, you can do that here as well. There is all kinds of possibilities here in terms of what you can do, in the function stack.
And I asked this in the chat. I already asked them, but if anyone here at any point has any questions, please let us know now, because you have the opportunity to interact with our speaker here now live. And so I can't stress that enough. It's so precious to have this kind of support and help straight away. So please don't be shy. Let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So happy to answer any questions. So I am going to I'm going to give you a little bit of cooking show magic right now, because we've built an API, right, and we have a few more APIs at our disposal. So what does this actually look like when we integrate with a no-code front end? Just for the sake of time, I actually already have a few examples built, pretty much ready to go here. I'm going to touch briefly on how these connections were made in these no-code front ends here, and then we'll see them in action.
Awesome. We do have a question by Rachel.
Oh, sure.
Hi, Rachel. Does Xano have record limits? I think Airtable caps at 100,000 records, so we often store our backend in Azure DB, but I would love to have something more no-code oriented.
Fantastic question, and I'm actually really upset at myself that I didn't mention this earlier. So at Xano, we only have a record limit on our free plan. I think my camera just died.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. We have a record limit on our free plan, which is 10,000 records. The moment you step up to any of our paid plans, you no longer have a record limit. You can have as many as you want. We have Xano customers that have millions of records available in their millions of records in their Xano database. So the moment you step up to a paid plan, there are no record limits.
All right. And Shibuzor is saying, I want you to demonstrate some function logic. All right, Shibuzor, we're getting to it.
I absolutely will, I promise. So in terms of the no-code front ends, this process is going to be super different depending on the front end that you're using. But just a couple of quick examples here. This is Adalo. Adalo is a great platform for building mobile applications. So in Adalo, we have the option to integrate with our external users. So if we're using authentication in Xano, we can integrate that. But in terms of just our APIs, we have, let's see where, so I have my external collections option here. So when I'm adding a collection, all I do here is I just give Adalo the URL to my API, give any parameters that they need, and then we're pretty much good to go. And I can kind of show you what that looks like here. So I have a URL here to get available deals, and I've set up some authorization here. And then we have, you can see Adalo picks up on all the endpoints that we have available, and then we can test that connection. And Adalo kind of does the magic from there, which allows us to link things like these lists and text fields and anything that we need to the data that is returned from the API. So it's a pretty seamless connection, and we can kind of preview this in action here. I can go ahead and log in to my application. Nobody look at my password. And you can see we are given a list of merchants. This is again coming from the Xano backend. Obviously, there's some more data here. I wanted to make sure that it was super fleshed out for the example. And we can go ahead and just pick one of these merchants. Looks like I've already claimed the Olive Garden deal, so let's try another one. I've claimed all the 7-Eleven deals too. All right, well, this is cool. Let me see if I can find one that I haven't claimed yet. Aha, perfect. So I have a deal at Burger King that I haven't claimed yet. So I can click this, give it just a second, and we can see that has now moved down to the claimed deals. And that's not just a front end or a UI trick. So what's actually happening here is Adalo knows that anytime I click on one of these available deals, it calls one of my my Xano APIs, and it says, hey, Xano, this user just claimed this deal. Xano updates the information in the database and then returns that response back to Adalo. And the same thing happens in our other examples here. So I have this built in Webflow. Webflow is a little bit trickier because Webflow, you do have to utilize some JavaScript to work directly with those APIs. I know Webflow Logic does offer some flexibility there. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to dive in fully into that feature yet. But again, we can just get a quick preview here. And we can log into our application. And I think I've claimed all the deals. So we might not have any deals to claim, but you can at least see, again, this is all data that is populated from our Xano API, and we can see those deals. And of course, we can see our claimed deals here. And all of that is handled, again, just via some custom code, actually using, we have a Xano SDK to make writing that JavaScript super easy for you, if this is the platform that you would want to use. And we can also integrate with Bubble. Again, same story here, 100%. We have Bubble connected to our Xano APIs using either the Bubble API connector. And if I expand this, you can see that I have added all of my Xano APIs here. We have the URLs as well as any parameters that these APIs need. However, very recently, Eli Beachy, who is a very prominent member of the Bubble and Xano community, actually built a Xano connector plugin for Bubble, which is very cool. So if you are a Bubble user or thinking about using Bubble, definitely recommend taking a look at that Xano connector plugin, which will definitely make your life a lot easier. But again, I can log into the application, and we can see I have a menu of my merchants, again, pulled right from the Xano API, and I can see those available and used deals. So all of that is just being taken straight from Xano.
We do have a question.
Sure.
When using Bubble, what are some key questions to assess whether to develop an external backend with Xano or stay with the native DB?
Sure. So large data sets are a big concern in Bubble. Large data sets and advanced data transformation. We're big fans of Bubble at Xano, and we will absolutely tell you if we feel like, in terms of your use case, maybe it makes more sense to stay on Bubble, and that's totally fine. But if you start getting to a point where your data set is growing to a size that maybe Bubble has a little bit of a slower speed on in terms of querying that data. Maybe you're doing mass transformation on your data. So, maybe you have a few thousand records that you need to update in one swoop. That's where we tend to see some performance issues on the Bubble side, and it makes more sense to migrate over to Xano. Another big thing is compliance. If you need an application to be I know HIPAA compliance is a big thing, especially in the Bubble world right now, because Bubble does things like proxying to where all of your data actually passes through Bubble servers in the United States. Things like GDPR compliance are really tricky. So having a third-party backend will help you mitigate those concerns. I'd say those are the two biggest things. We actually have on our YouTube channel, we have there's a video. It's a deep dive into when you should consider using Xano with Bubble, and that's with JJ Englert, who is a very prominent Bubbler. I definitely recommend checking that out.
Awesome. We do have some more questions, but I'm just gonna hold them off for a minute because I know that we're getting short on time. And so, yeah, I want to make sure that you get to the end of your presentation, and then we can go and start with the Q&A.
Sure. So the only other thing I wanted to show here, and I apologize, I forgot who asked, is you want to see some data transformation, right? You want to see a function stack actually do things. So we're going to take a quick look at that. And I've already kind of pre-built a couple of things just for the sake of time. But what I'm doing here is I'm making an API request to the Google Maps Places API. And what this is giving me is a list of restaurants within a certain radius. And we can actually take a look at what that is returning. So if I scroll down a little bit here, we can see we have a restaurant name. We have, looks like, some data on a photo and the addresses for these restaurants and things like that. So Google has given us all kinds of information here, right? Which we don't really need. But what if we want to populate our merchants table with data from the Google API? So we can do that very quickly here by calling that Google API, and then we can set up a loop. We have a loop set to loop through these all of these results here, and all we really need then is a step to add that record to our database. So we can, I think this is actually already good to go. I'm going to check my work here very briefly just to make sure. So what I'm doing here is I am using a stop and debug function, which is a really great tool for debugging your Xano functions to allow you to halt execution and look at the output of a variable. So all I'm doing is I'm checking to make sure my add record step is looking at these names properly, and it looks like it is. So I'm going to turn off my stop and debug. I'm going to go to my database so you can see, and I haven't actually tested this execution. So if it breaks, feel free to make fun of me in the chat. But I think we'll be okay. You can see my merchants end at Pizza Hut right now. So if we go back, and
I'm judging
we can
your
actually...
choice of takeouts, by the way.
we can go ahead and run this. That's totally fair. I will accept that judgment. And it looks like one of these. Oh no! So in my response, I had it returning a variable that doesn't exist. But we can look in the debugger. You can see all of these records that were just added to our table. So let's actually check that table. And you can see the names for all of those restaurants, and this was just populated from that Google Places API. So just a super quick 2 or 3 steps allowed us to pull that data from the external source, dial right down to what we need, transform it into any way that we need, and have that added to our database. And this should mean that if I go back to my list of merchants here, we can see all of those new merchants are now in our front ends, just like that, which is super cool. So that was a lot. I know. I'm happy to field any questions now. And it looks like my camera died again. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure why that's happening.
It's not API friendly.
Maybe not.
All right. Well, that's fantastic, Chris. I can't stress enough how grateful we are to have you here again, for our episode 2 on APIs. And yes, it is a lot. Yes, I can confirm this is very technical. So I have to probably just get my hands dirty on Xano to kind of like really understand how it works. And I recommend that to everyone out there. Just like, I've been getting into the no-code world for, nearly a year now. But the most valuable thing is to have these fantastic people like Chris here sharing their valuable knowledge and resources, and then just get your hands dirty, go and try it out for yourself, and you will learn a lot faster. And then obviously join communities like No Code Ops, so you're never alone in your journey. So yes, let's get into our Q&A. I can see Jens is ready, so
there we go.
Jens, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chris. I haven't seen me, but I've been with you all the time.
Oh, awesome.
So super interesting. We've spoken before. I've just started to learn about APIs myself, so this is gold. Before we go into the Q&A, I just want to share something for those of you really interested in this, and if you want a way to really learn this hands-on. We have an API bootcamp starting in the beginning of March. We've joined forces with an automation agency, no-code automation agency. They're specializing in internal process automations. And we offer a 3-week no-code API bootcamp. So during these 3 weeks, you will learn basically everything you need to know to start using APIs in your no-code journey, in your company, with your team. So it'll include reading and understanding API documentation, making successful API calls, working with webhooks, creating powerful API workflows. So after these 3 weeks, we'll basically be able to create custom automation solutions that are tailored to the needs that you have in your company. And this is a cohort style course, so you will work closely together with other operators. You will have access to our Discord server, and of course, it will be led by 3 experts in this field. So we're starting in March. We will send out some information about this after the event. If you want to get ahead of everyone else, you can go to this link. We do have a limited amount of seats for this. So take a look at this link, and it will send that out after the event. And we really hope we see you there, because this is going to be an amazing event.
It's very cool.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And I'll share that in the chat as well for everyone watching here. Jens, do we have any Q&A? Do we have any questions from our audience from registering?
Yeah, so we had a lot of questions before the event. Super interesting to see. I'm just going to remove this there, and then I'm going to show one from the chat. I've tried to remove the ones that Chris already answered, so we don't repeat ourselves. So I'm just gonna add these here. So do you offer a staging environment if in case I want to tweak something without breaking?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we have a lot of options in terms of continuing to develop without touching your what's live, essentially. So that includes we have separate data sources available. So you can have a live data source, which is what your live application uses, and then an entirely different set of tables with the same schema, but just with test data that you can use with your APIs. And we also offer API branches, so you can build an entirely new branch of your APIs and test those without impacting live data. And your APIs also have draft support, which means that you can iterate and test on your APIs again and make those changes and test them and roll back changes as you need without impacting anything that's happening live. So we have a lot of options there for you. And those are all, of course, compatible with our team collaboration features as well, if you're working with other people inside Xano.
So updating stuff and making sure it goes live is usually like the scariest moment when you're trying to do something. You never know where you're going to mess up.
For sure. Yeah, we try to make that as comfy as possible.
That's why I like having these kind of live events and like having people build on the spot, because I love a little bit of troubleshooting. There's always something that happens when you're building, and you might as well do it with 100, 200 people watching.
So you when you talked about how Xano can be your database. What can you say more about Xano? What can Xano do except that, or besides that?
What can Xano do? I mean, it's such a hard question to answer, because Xano is fundamentally a programming language, and I hate to say that because this is no code ops, right? So let me be very clear. I don't mean that you are coding in Xano, but what I mean is you are given the same flexibility and the same power that you have with a programming language inside your Xano function stacks. So in terms of what can Xano do, Xano can do pretty much anything. It's just all about what it is specifically you're trying to build and how to get there. So I know that sounds like a non-answer, but I hope that at least kind of gives an idea there as well. It's truly almost limitless.
You could have been a politician if this no code thing doesn't work out. You can be a politician. That's actually one of the questions we had. It's hard to do a backend or create a backend without coding, and I think you've given us the answer to that, solution to that one.
Yeah. I mean, Xano is the answer.
It's not like you work for them.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about it before. What are your different tiers? What does it cost to use your system?
So our plans are split up like this. So we have our free plan, and the free plan is 95% has like 95% of the functionality that the paid plans do. There's a couple of functions that aren't available on the free plan, such as like our Lambda functions, which actually allows you to use JavaScript inside of your function stacks if you want to. And it of course has the record limit of 10,000 records, and it is rate limited as well, which means you can only make a certain amount of requests to your APIs I think it's 10 requests every 20 seconds. That's on our free plan. Our lowest tier paid plan is our launch plan, which I believe is, if you pay monthly, is $67 a month and $59 a month if you pay yearly. And that immediately removes the rate limit. That immediately removes the record limit. You are able to choose your server region if you need to migrate your server to a different region. Maybe your users are based outside of the United States, or you need to comply with some data privacy laws. So the moment you step up to a paid plan, you can do that. There's not really, and our plans kind of go up from there. Really just about it, and that's all about the performance that you need. As your application scales, you'll need more resources, and then you can step up from there. But that launch plan that we have, that's our lowest tier paid plan, that is meant for you to launch your application. And the next plan up from there is our scale plan, which is there for when you need to scale. So the second you step up to our paid plan, you have the whole platform at your disposal, even if it's our launch plan, which is just that first tier.
That's amazing. So I've gone through all the questions, and you managed to answer most of the questions we had beforehand during your presentation.
Awesome.
If people still have questions, is it okay to reach out to you on these platforms, Twitter, LinkedIn?
Absolutely, 100%. Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm also in the No Code Ops Discord, or just come say hi to me in the Xano community or in support chat. I'm there too. I'm everywhere.
Amazing. Let me try that.
Thank you.
Can you hear it? Awesome. Well, another shout out to you, Chris Coleman. Thank you so much for being here. You've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and knowledge on this API kind of webinar that we hosted here at No Code Ops. I hope you had a nice experience being our guest, and I hope to see you again in the future for more goodies. And
Absolutely.
shout out to my co-host Jens as well. Thank you so much for helping me out directing this webinar and this series of events. And yeah, it's incredibly powerful to be conducting these events, just to have these communities and just engaging with so many inspiring people like yourselves. And so let's keep doing it.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for having me again. I will absolutely be back whenever you are willing to have me.
Awesome. And to everyone here in the audience, hopefully see you next week. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube so you won't miss any of these events, and obviously join our Discord so you won't miss any of the other awesome stuff that we're talking about. All right. See you all next Thursday, and have a fantastic day or night wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.